Duality, it's the contrast. It's the polar opposite. If you can love deeply, know that you can hurt deeply as well. The reality of it is that we all have the ability to be toxic. It's whether or not we become aware of it. The Western philosophy has adopted this. What do you want? Think of the self and then ask yourself, what do you want? Whereas in the Eastern philosophy, it talks about the connectedness and that we have to think about the collective first before the self. Well, the self as part of everything.
As part of everything. Okay,
whereas now we're just looking at the self because it's, again, this is quite complicated. So we'd have to really go deep into this, right? But you think about this. We talk about spiritualism and trust the universe, but we're only looking at it from ourselves. What do I want? And then we're scrolling through social media and only getting bits and tiny bits and pieces and thinking that's enough. And then we're not going deep inside to go, what does this actually mean? And then we're looking at it going, yeah, I want that jumper, I want this house, I want this, and I want this. And, it's all about what do I want?
It's very superficial.
So superficial. And then people start to think, well, once I collect all of that and I can manifest. I mean,
the manifesting's great.
The word that really bugs me right now is manifestation.
Oh, bad. Now, bad.
And people think, if I just think about me, what do I want? I visualize it, it's going to come to me. So surface. Then we forget to then explore what's in here, what's in our heart, right? We forget to explore our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. How does it all interact together? And what does it mean to have connectiveness? And you see that more and more in the Western world, Western philosophy and spiritualism than Eastern spiritualism. And it dates back to thousands of years ago. All we've done is we've forgotten where it's all come from. Everyone thinks that, I'm spiritual. Okay, well, have you thought about yourself in connection to everyone else? Or are you still just thinking about the house? I mean, it's beautiful. You can have the house, the cars, the hair, the whatever. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but not at a level where you forget the true meaning behind it. Why do we have so many issues? Why do we have so many fights? Why do we have so many, at a micro and macro level, it's the fact that we have separated ourselves. Johari's window, they talk about that, or from an organisational psychology perspective. Yeah. Today, what you and I are showing each other is what you and I want to show to each other. I see the basics of it. You're wearing a pink, beautiful top or orange. You've got glasses on, you've got a beautiful smile. That's what you're willing to show me that. And then there's the point of what you don't want to show me and what I can't see, but you know. Then there's also what I can see that you can't see. That's the blind spot. And then the final one is what I can't see and what you can't see, because we haven't had the experience yet. So we need an experience to bring out the real secret stuff that we don't even know about yet, and it hasn't presented its ugly head. You ask yourself, okay, what language am I using then? Just become aware of the language. So if you say, for example, things like it's hard and it's difficult, and you go, oh, how do I change that? The second you hear, so you want the triggers, right? The second you hear yourself saying, that's difficult, I say that, no, Reem, okay, there's the language. What language do you want to use? And so I might change it, soften it up a little bit and say, I just don't know how to do it yet. Yet being the imperative word.
Yeah.
Or I might say, that's okay, because I know there's a better way.
Yeah.
I just soften the language for myself. And the other thing is, do you really want to believe your own thoughts? By the time we're 35, research is showing that 50% of our memories are made up. So if you keep going back to the past every time to search, because that's how the mechanics of the mind works, you go, let me search for feelings, and you bring it into the present. All you're doing is creating the old and bringing it to this situation, and then you're reinforcing it. And then you have a stream of consciousness. You start having thoughts that will lead you to believing what you're telling yourself. So you have to ask yourself, is this a real truth or is this a made-up truth? Because what is the truth?
Well, how do you differentiate between the two?
Every feeling either comes from a place of fear or love. Some people call it faith, deep faith.
Yeah.
Or it's coming from pure fear, separation. So I have to look after myself. The ego comes in. I have to protect myself. We interpret everything that way. So I have to actually ask myself, where is this coming from? Is it coming from fear or is it coming from love? Buddha says pain is inevitable. Suffering is the choice. Once you start to suffer, it means you're the victim. It means you've actually relinquished your control of your own life to circumstances or to someone else. right? So the question is, do you want to relinquish that control or do you want to take it back?
Yeah.
And so pain is just feeling the pain, understanding that life is about duality and contrast.
Yeah.
Because you'll never, ever, ever enjoy anything in life if you didn't understand how painful the other side can be. You just take everything for granted. We don't make assumptions because it makes an ass out of you and me. Like, don't put assumptions on why someone's behaving the way they are so that then you go down the rabbit hole of negativity. But then I've come to realize over the years that you have to make assumptions, and we always make assumptions. The question is, are you going to make the assumption based on the negative side and why things aren't working, or are you going to make the assumption to help you get to where you want to get to? So change that assumption behind the belief and you change everything. But you can't get to an age without having some kind of trauma in your life. Yeah. And so we just need to define that term toxic rather than just saying, oh, well, that person's toxic. Is that based on one moment of time, or is it behavior that's displayed over a long period of time? So when it becomes behavior that's displayed over a long period of time, from organisation to organisation, relationship to relationship, there's manipulation, there's passive aggression, and it's continuous, then you can start going, yes, there is toxic behavior displayed here. Let's go back to the individual first.
Okay.
Number one, I do not believe that people could recognise toxicity within themselves, because if they could, they wouldn't be toxic anymore. They'd change their behaviour. I don't believe that anyone does anything to harm others on purpose. Okay. I think most people do the best they can with what they've got under the circumstances that they're in.
Okay, interesting.
It's a question of, do they practice self-awareness? And it is a practice. It's something that you have to practice, or are they unwilling to look deep within? Do you actively audit your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, morning, afternoon, and evening? What's my thought behind this feeling? Oh, God, I'm putting on weight. That's a thought. You repeat that enough time, it becomes a belief, right?
It becomes a belief, yeah.
And you go, well, do I really want to keep doing that? Or do I want to look myself in the eyes as I'm brushing my teeth and go, you know what, you've got a very strong body. People think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. Start to train it to think differently. You start to train it to self-audit without any expectations to begin with of it being brilliant or fantastic or whatever you deem and define as brilliant and fantastic. Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is just start the practice. And then the question becomes, well, do I want to believe my own thoughts? Because most of us have these thoughts that are regurgitated day in, day out, day in, day out. We repeat the same thoughts 95% of the time. And you know you're in true thinking mode when it becomes creative and you're willing to ask yourself those questions and do the self-audit piece. That's where the growth comes from.
The toxic behaviour equals fear and protection.
At a very, very, very basic level, that's all it is. Is it more important to be right or kind? Kind.
Kind, 100%. Okay. So you look at all the time.
So then you go, well, why do I want to be right? Why do I want to be right? Because it pleases my ego, because it makes me feel better, because the way I was brought up is it's vulnerability, it's this, it's that, it's underneath the surface. I say just stop. You need to take a step backwards. You need to slow down. You need to think in order to speed it up. You want calmness of mind, speed of action. The more you understand yourself, then you start to be able to have a look at other people and go, well, what's happening with them? 75% of people usually leave the workplace for another job, not for money, but because of who their boss is. The best thing you can do with toxicity in the workplace is recognize it very quickly, address it very quickly, and give people the opportunity to rectify their behaviour.